Why smart people stay quiet. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful person in the room is not the one making the most noise, but often the one who stays the quietest? Because while everyone else is talking, that quiet person is observing everything. We live in a world where everyone wants to be the main character. Everyone wants attention. Everyone wants to be heard and seen as the smartest person in the room. But there is a harsh truth that most people ignore. Empty vessels make the most noise. If you think being quiet is a weakness, you might be completely wrong. In reality, many intelligent people choose to stay low-key, and that silence often pushes them light years ahead of everyone else. There was a young man named Leo who worked in a large company in a busy city. In his office, almost everyone loved to talk. During meetings, people constantly tried to speak louder than others just to impress the boss. In truth, most of them were simply clout chasing, trying to look smarter than they actually were. But Leo was different. He rarely spoke. Instead, he listened carefully and wrote small notes in his notebook. Because of this, many coworkers didn't take him seriously. One day during a meeting, his colleague Jack, who was known as the office loudmouth, laughed and said, "Leo, why are you always so quiet? Do you have nothing to say? Or did your brain glitch?" The room filled with laughter. Leo simply smiled and looked back at his notebook. He didn't react. He didn't argue. Because he understood something many people didn't. Some arguments are simply a waste of time. In that moment, he remembered something his grandfather once told him. When you speak, you only repeat what you already know. But when you listen, you learn something new. Leo followed that advice. While others were busy talking, he was studying the situation. He was watching people's reactions, their tone of voice, their body language. He realized that many people talk too much because they are insecure. Noise is often used to hide a lack of confidence. Leo's silence, however, was a sign of unshakable confidence. A few days later, a major problem appeared in the company. One of their most important projects was failing. The boss quickly called an emergency meeting. Inside the conference room, chaos began. Everyone started sharing ideas. People interrupted each other. Arguments filled the room. The louder the voices became, the more confusing the situation felt. Yet Leo sat quietly in his chair, listening to every word. Finally, the boss looked around the room and then stopped at Leo. "Leo," he said, "you've been quiet this whole time. What do you think?" Suddenly, the room went silent. Everyone looked at him. Some people expected him to say nothing. Leo slowly closed his notebook and calmly spoke just 2 sentences. Those 2 sentences summarized everything everyone had been arguing about for the past 30 minutes. In those few words, he explained the real problem and the solution. For a moment, the room stayed completely silent. Then the boss nodded and said, "That is exactly what we needed." Jack and the others were stunned. The people who had been shouting for an hour couldn't solve the problem. But Leo, the quiet one, solved it in seconds. After that day, everything changed. The same coworkers who once laughed at him began listening carefully whenever he spoke. They finally realized something important. The quietest person in the room is not always the weakest. Sometimes, that person is simply the smartest observer. Life teaches us a powerful lesson. People who talk all the time often waste their energy trying to prove themselves. But those who observe, think, and speak only at the right moment carry far more influence. Silence is not the absence of intelligence. It is often the presence of control. Remember this: the loudest person in the room is not always the strongest, but the one who listens, learns, and waits for the right moment can surprise everyone, because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the ultimate alpha move.